In today's brief insight of current affairs, I'll be discussing brief overview of Hong Kong issue as well as options for Pakistan. Hong Kong is an economic powerhouse and it in fact has one of the most freest economies of the world. Although Hong Kong is a city of China, but administratively and politically it is very unique in its characteristics. And in order to understand the issues in Hong Kong, it is utmost to understand that how these two regions are functioning. Hong Kong is a special administrative region of the People's Republic of China, which means that Hong Kong is governed by its own set of rules and regulation both politically and economically, with the exemption of defense and foreign affairs. The rules and regulations of Hong Kong are governed by a document known as the Basic Law, which is a sort of constitution for Hong Kong which lays out rules and regulations. And the rules and regulations both in Hong Kong and China are polar opposite, both economic wise as well as political wise. Because if you see mainland China, in mainland China, the economy is totally controlled by the state. It is the state who decides what to do and how to do. But in Hong Kong, as said before, it's one of the freest economies of the world. And considering political wise, same is the case with that too, because if you see in mainland China, there is no concept of freedom of speech. There is no concept of making a political party. In fact, there is a death penalty for making a political party. However, on the other hand, in the case of Hong Kong is politically autonomous, which means that there is a safeguard to people's political right, like right to freedom of association, right to free speech, etc. So this is a point which is creating friction between Hong Kong and mainland China. So let's now discuss that despite being geographically connected with mainland China, why the relationship between Hong Kong and China has been so different from historical point of view. Well, for this, the answer is that initially Hong Kong was under the control of British since 1842 when China lost the first Opium War. And afterwards, it was handed to the British. And in 1980s, there was a uprising within China that China should back be unified along with Hong Kong and other territories, which resulted in British finally reaching an agreement with China and signing a declaration in 1997. But in that declaration, there was an aspect as well that for the next 50 years, Hong Kong will be given autonomy and the freedom in economy and politics will be maintained at least until the next 50 years. Let's now discuss a very important question. That is that why China is lately interfering in the affairs of Hong Kong. Well, the answer to this lies in history as well. Because back in 1990s, when Hong Kong was getting its freedom from British, at that time, Hong Kong was contributing approximately 27% to the overall Chinese economy. Because at that time, China was not the same China what it is today. It had just opened its market to the international world and Hong Kong was the powerhouse. Hence, China didn't want to take any risk by meddling in the affairs of Hong Kong and antagonizing the people. On the other hand, today the situation is polar opposite. And China has overtaken the economy of Hong Kong. And in fact, one of the mainland Chinese cities known as Shenzhen surpassed the economy of Hong Kong. And as of today, Hong Kong is only contributing 3% to the Chinese economy. And due to which China has become more fearless and hence going into the affairs of Hong Kong and trying to integrate that towards mainland China. Furthermore, China is also envisioning the Greater Bay Initiative, which is a sort of economic collaboration amongst the mainland cities of China and making a sort of Silicon Valley within China, but in a much larger scale by including Shenzhen, Hong Kong and other nearby territories and making it a competition for the US in terms of economy and trade. And China is very interested to integrate Hong Kong so Hong Kong can be a part of that initiative as well. Recently, China has been making certain laws related to political and freedom of association. In fact, very recently, China made a law that protesters will be extradited to the mainland China and they will be tried according to their law. And the local people of Hong Kong, they are strong proponents of liberal democracy, which means freedom of association, freedom of press, etc. And China is polar opposite, and hence that friction is coming into play, especially when China is making these laws, and this is leading to more and more protests day by day. China is also effectively trying to control the mainstream media of Hong Kong by forcing the mainland Chinese language, which is Mandarin, over Cantonese, which is a language spoken within Hong Kong. As a result, it sparked numerous protests against the mainland Chinese government in Hong Kong and led towards severe brutal clashes. And USA, along with other liberal democracies, have been openly supporting Hong Kong and have been openly criticizing China for their brutality in Hong Kong by suppressing their fundamental rights. And some critics also argue that US is trying to make Hong Kong a battleground for China and US Cold War, because US is openly supporting Hong Kong protesters against China, and China is trying to regain its power in Hong Kong by suppressing the media and the people. Let's now discuss a very pertinent question, and that is, what are the diplomatic options for Pakistan? Well, Pakistan first of all has to be very cautious, because historically, in terms of Pakistan's foreign policy, Pakistan did make some mistakes, especially in the case of US and USSR, due to which Pakistan had to face the tremors even today. But in this case, Pakistan has to be more cautious. And Pakistan should try not to align itself with either of the sides, because non-alignment is the best sort of diplomatic way out. But on the other hand, Pakistan cannot outrightly say no to China, because China is a major geo-economic and geostrategic ally of Pakistan, and in fact supported Pakistan on every possible front, including Kashmir in the United Nations. And hence, no is a chance that no is not an option. So what Pakistan can do is that Pakistan can support China if needed, but if it's not needed on international forum, Pakistan shouldn't volunteer and go outrightly against the US, because antagonizing US is not also in the ultimate interest of Pakistan. So this was a brief insight about the Hong Kong issue as well as options for Pakistan. In the meantime, if you have any questions or suggestions, please feel free to comment. Thank you very much.